Hey, are you curious about how to design a room for a teenage girl? Well, I was too. You watched us design and build this house in 150 days, but the work is far from over. We're about to jump into my favorite part of the process of bringing all this together. Join me for an exclusive look right here on ehowhome. This room actually turned out to be one of my favorite rooms in the whole house. And believe it or not, it's the room that I thought, well, I'm going to have the most trouble with because it's for a teenage girl, my niece, Laura. She loves purple, and that's really all I had to go on. So let me give you the basics of the room. The room dimensions are just 10.5 by 12.5. And what I wanted to do is to honor her interest in purple. It seems like purple's really hot now among teenage girls. And so rather than going with a really deep, dark purple, I wanted something light because the lighter colors make the room feel more expansive. And so for the ceiling, we went with a color called Nosegay. And on the walls, we went with a color called Spring Iris, both by Benjamin Moore. Now the trim color in this room is the same as we've used throughout the house. It's snow white. Before we get into some of the details and decor, a lot of the fun stuff, I want to talk about a couple of challenges in this room. One of them is that we had this sloped ceiling, or wall, however you want to look at it. This follows the roof line. We're upstairs, so the roof line comes down at roughly a 45-degree angle here, and so we had to arrange the furniture such that it worked with this. So this made the perfect place for positioning a desk and a chair over here, sort of a writing station, a place to do homework and so forth on this north wall. Now if you'll notice for the walls, we just used those simple planks nailed up or arranged on the horizontal, not running vertically, but running horizontally, not only on the vertical walls, but also these angled walls and the ceiling. Now, the ceiling, that brings me to another challenge in this room. We have 8-foot ceilings, standard height, but I really wanted to use this antique bed. I just think adding an antique in a room just gives it, I don't know, sort of a richness, gives it soul. And this is a great old bed. It actually came from Natchez, Mississippi, out of a plantation house. It's called a pineapple bed. It's called this because of the pineapple motif that is carved into the posts of the beds. You can see in this small single bed, there are 8 pineapples. One here and one here, there and there. And then if you look at the top, the finials are actually pineapples. Now, this bed originally had a canopy over it, making it a tester bed. And this 4-poster bed is richly carved and is a great example of American furniture from about 1820. So I wanted to use this. I love the deep, dark mahogany color. And I thought the contrast of this piece to, well, these very light colors on the walls would make this really the focal point in the room. And I think we achieved that. You know, if you design a room for a teenage girl, sometimes it helps to get another perspective. I called on my friend Rebecca Robeson. She's from California, and she has a great following because she's a great designer. She does a lot of work with young girls and help them design their rooms. We threw around some ideas in this room, and it was a great help to get her perspective. Now, as we've talked about design in this house and in other places, one of the principles that I always fall back on is starting with a single object to sort of get my color and pattern going. And you know, I found this quilt in a secondhand store. Actually, it was an antique shop. It's not an old quilt, but I saw it and I thought, wow, look at these colors. And they really are fresh and modern. And I just felt like this would be the perfect colorway or colorways to go with. So with this in place, I began to choose things that resonated with this blanket that just rests at the end of the bed. Now, when you come into this room, one of the things that I wanted was a focal point. We've talked about the bed, and it certainly dominates the room, but just a single object of a certain color can really arrest your eye. So when you come into the room there, you look across to this corner, which makes the room feel larger. And you can see it's just made up of several objects. You know, she can move everything down and give herself plenty of room to work. But what I have here are just a few objects. This from the Paul Michael Company. This painting was one from Birchwood Communities, which I love. We painted the frame snow white so it matched the trim. And then this piece over here is just a simple frame with chicken wire on it. But it's painted exuberant pink. which I think it's really well named. And it picks up the same colors that we have in that bed coverlet. So you look across the room and the eye really gravitates toward this. Now, a couple of other things I want to point out in this corner include this chartreuse colored bentwood chair from the Paul Michael Company. I just love this color. Again, it's picking up the chartreuse here, and then you're also seeing it in this very modern picture of flowers, which I think is really beautiful. And in this corner, the antidote for all this bright color is this really handsome wall hanging from the Paul Michael Company. It's made of white oak, and then you have cast iron and metal here of this metallic laurel branch coming out of this classical urn, and it just fit this wall perfectly. So take a look at this corner. Here, I just put a clothes rack, just made with 3 pegs, a great place to hang some really bright and colorful scarves that work with our colorways here. And in this corner, I found this little table in a second-hand store, and we painted it perennial green from Benjamin Moore. This is a Paul Michael mirror here, as is the mirror across the room on top of the dresser. But back here, I just want to point out these 2 plates. These are really old transferware plates that are from England. And I just love the color on them. It's a mulberry color. And you may recall when I found these in the antique shop, because I thought they worked so well with this coverlet. And it's kind of fun if you think that maybe this was made in 2010, these were made in 1810, so 1810 meets 2010, a 200-year gap, hanging together beautifully. Now I want to point out a few things on this other side of the room. The dresser was something that I found in again a secondhand shop. I had my friend Mr. Kloss paint it snow white, and it's turned out to be really quite handsome. We put the Paul Michael mirror above it, and then in the corner I've clustered some vintage pictures of songbirds, and then another one of those paintings from Birchwood Communities. Also in this corner, I think worth pointing out, include another one of these chartreuse Paul Michael Company chairs. And then here I found this little bracket in this beautiful amethyst, almost purple colored jar that is placed on this. I mean, this was like $3, and I think this little bracket was like 10 bucks. And then another one of those Birchwood Community pictures here of roses, which I think is very, very good. Now, 2 other areas to point out in this room before we close. One of them is the floor. Here we painted our pine board floors with that black bean soup from Benjamin Moore, and then we covered it with the sisal rug from Lumber One, and then on top of it I found a throw rug in chartreuse from the Paul Michael Company, which tied all of this sort of really acid green together. And then there's lighting. The lighting here is very important. I used 2 lamps, one by the desk, which makes a lot of sense, and a matching lamp by the bed. And then of course the ceiling light here, you can see I love it because it's made with molten glass and chicken wire, perfect for our farmhouse chic look. And you can see we have a vintage bulb in it, which I think just adds to the charm. And of course, the way to really bring a room to life is make sure you bring some elements of nature in, like fresh flowers. Over here we have a bouquet of daisies and carnations, very old-fashioned. Another old-fashioned plant here, a beautiful variegated African violet, and over here a gorgeous potted orchid. They just add so much. Hey, if you really like the way this room has come together, you have some thoughts about maybe what we could have done differently, I'd love to hear about it, so post them here. And of course, the best way to keep up with all of our room reveals is to simply subscribe to ehowhome.